Let's turn and think about this idea of the waste that we're seeking in our processes. Now, I want to begin by talking about the word gemba. Gemba is an old Chinese word, actually, that's been used, or the Chinese character are used in Japan to express this concept. There are four characters involved in gemba. One is the king, second is sunset, the third is surveying the kingdom, and the fourth is a pigsty. So what I'd like to do is use this 5W1H concept that we've talked about to try to understand what's the storyline about what's happening here. So first, what happened? Well, it's a survey, a detailed scrutiny of what's going on. Who was there? The king. So it's an executive function. When did it happen? At sunset, the end of a natural working period. Where did it happen? At the point of doing the real work, he went to see what was going on. At the pigsty. Why did it happen? He wanted to understand the real thing, to see what's going on in that daily management system. And how did it happen? It was personal activity on the part of the king to go and notice what was happening. And then he saw the mess. So the idea in gemba and going to the gemba is constantly seeking opportunities for improvement as a responsibility of the executive function. So many people who talk about the idea of lean think about this as something for the workers to do. But in reality, when we talk about gemba, it has embedded in it an executive function, this unrelenting process to go and find out what can we really do to seek opportunities for improvement in this organization. So when we talk about waste, what we usually talk about is any activity that's adding cost, time, or loss, and it doesn't add value that the customers would appreciate, or maybe it increases the risk to employees through some sort of hazardous work conditions. When we talk about waste, we see that waste of resources is poor representation of management responsibility. Now, in Japan, there are three words for the use of no. The first word is a. So if you're listening to this and you're in Finland, you'll understand that word. I could ask you, do you want more broccoli? And you say a. Okay, that means no, just like in Japanese. The second word for no is mu. Now, mu is a stronger word. It's just like the biblical, thou shalt not. It's a command. And then the third word, and this is something that is used like with a father or a mother telling the child not to do something. It's yodamiyo! And they say it just like that because the kid has a startle reaction and moves away and doesn't touch the hot stove. Now, interestingly enough, when they talk about waste in Japan, there are three words. One of them you're all familiar with, muda. Okay? That means no waste in work discipline, in the daily way we do work. And so nothing in our day-to-day operation should be wasted. We can think of that as process waste. That's when we go to the workplace and we see the pigsty. It's the output of process waste. The second word is mura, and that means flow waste, or no waste from unbalanced working. And that means when the processes are not integrated together. Now that's harder to see in the work process. We actually understand that by studying the work processes together when we go on the exploratory data analysis and we start walking that process and understanding the linkages. The third type of waste is called muri, and that is irrational waste. And this is waste that comes from bad thinking or poor decision making. Now, this is the hardest one to do because we can only discover that through a causal investigation to say this was a good or a bad decision leading to these consequences, whether they're intended or unintended consequences. Now, each of those wastes can occur at any place in the organization. However, there is a special case that we have to be aware of. We can have the situation where executive muri, waste from an irrational decision, can create a state of systemic mura, waste in the flow across processes and systems, which will then generate localized muda, waste at the workplace, that the workers can't eliminate. So when we think about work processes and we think about waste elimination, and we put the burden on the workers to get rid of the muda, we should remember many times muda cannot be changed by the workers. It might have been generated by management choosing the wrong information system, creating more work for the employees, buying the wrong company, creating problems in integration of work across those companies, and so forth. So what we have to realize is we have to take a look at waste from all perspectives of the organization. And when we look at those things, we see that these three levels, the executive level, the functional level, and the process level, of those, the process level is where we add the value-adding work. It's in the Gemba. That is the value-adding work component. And we ask the question then, whose job is it to eliminate which waste? We have Muri, that has to be done by the organizational direction setting process. That's the executive function. Mura is cross-functional coordination. That has to be done at the business level in most processes. Muda then is what we would take a look at in terms of the work of the organization. Now, we have an unusual situation that happens in many organizations. And we're going to illustrate this with this particular graphic. Now, what happens many times is management sees an opportunity for improvement. And what they say is, we have to do something. And so they take the lead and they say, we're going to initiate an improvement project. Now, that's easy for them to say, so they issue it. Then it spreads out to the different cross-functional areas, and then the work is done at the daily management level. And it looks something like this. So this is an extra job that's being pushed on the system. So for instance, management might say, we need to upgrade ISO 9000 to 2015 version. And so we do that. And in the process of doing that, management discovers, wait a minute, our measurement system doesn't support the collaborative look at all those daily management issues in terms of the business measures. We have to change the measurement system. And so we have an extra job that comes in. And now that's more work filtering down into the organization. Then management realizes, wait a minute, our IT systems don't support that new measurement system. We have another change. And pretty soon they say, wait a minute, the work instructions and how we do work, they need to change. And what can happen if we don't coordinate that work is that all of these mandatory changes coming down from management displace the substantive work of the work process and create a situation where there's work overload for the workers. They're going to have frustration, and it's going to reduce the efficiency that they have in their process. So in summary, what we see is, if we're going to talk about waste identification and elimination, we see Muda waste is visible in the work process. Mura waste is detectable across the process flows. Muri waste is only detectable by causal analysis. And not all waste is detectable by workers. Some forms of waste will contain the means and capacities of workers so that they're constrained and they actually cannot create an improved process. So we have to have waste elimination as something that is a coordinated effort on the part of the organization, not something that is just daily dedicated and sent to the workplace as saying, we're going to delegate this work for you workers. Go get rid of the Muda. We don't have anything to do at the executive level. So one thing we're going to see is some of the work that you will discover as a green belt, actually the workers can't fix. And so you have to maintain an alertness to understand what is actionable within the daily management system. Because that's what you as a green belt are trying to get into a state of control or trying to improve within the constraints that your management has given you.